Hello, 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 and welcome to the Atheist Uprising. I'm your host, Joshua Void, and tonight is going to be a fantastic night. I actually really think that this conversation is going to be really, really good, and I really hope that you guys like it. For everybody who's on or watching at this very moment, I do want to say thank you for actually watching and supporting what we do in the Atheist Uprising. At the same exact time, I'd like to thank our Patreon supporters, uh, Linear, TART, and Dion LaShay, in order for them to help me and help us kind of give this whole new presence of atheism to you, the general public. So, without further ado, let's get into the topic matter. So, for today, we're actually talking about women within the atheist uprising and how the atheist uprising, in and of itself, perceives the place, or not perceives, but sees where women lie within the atheist uprising. The For us, the very first thing that we see is that women, we see them as equal to ourselves, correct? And henceforth, that there needs to be some give and take between the two. We can't just have one position stating one thing while a female's position is not being heard. So henceforth, we really do want to work alongside our female compatriots in order to really understand and hear their issues and their problems in and of themselves, because they are obviously completely different to men's issues and men's problems. So what we plan on doing with this is really focusing on creating community centers, and let alone on Discord as well. We want to hear any type of ideas that women may have in order to really help build their position within the atheist uprising at this as well, right? Because we do understand that a man cannot be just like how I'm doing right now. So it's kind of hypocritical for me to state what I'm about to state. But all in all, what we really look forward to and what we really look for, in a sense, is women coming forward and becoming their own, how could I say it? Their own uprisers within the movement, right? Their own individuals who, in a sense, will help us kind of create a movement that is unanimous, or not unanimous, but that is together, created together rather than separate, or it seems that we are dictating to women in general. However, we do believe that there are certain instances that the atheist uprising in and of itself needs to, I guess, slowly but surely in time, have to re-educate ourselves as men, and at the same exact time re-educate most atheist uprisers in the way how to really understand our position. Because the one thing that is extremely difficult at this very moment is our understanding of the conflict that is within most groups, and definitely within most atheist groups as well, because it's extremely difficult to really understand and to comprehend the varying differences between the two, between males and females, obviously, and then after everything else that comes with that, the LGBTQ community and onwards, I mean to say. So what we really need to focus on, in and of itself, at least the way that I see it, is that we got to really build a foundation for the new, or not the new, but for women to really take that uprising position, right? Because I do believe that there are certain instances that society dictates what we should. Society dictates how a woman should be and should not be. And I think that the idea of the atheist uprising in and of itself is something that is completely different, that the woman takes the initiative of her own self, correct? But that own self in and of itself, right, is perpetuated within the movement in and of itself. So it sounds a little confusing. I understand that. But what we really truly want to bring to the forefront is obviously women's health. We really believe that women's health is the big thing that needs to be focused on within the atheist uprising. I think that there's not really that many groups that focus predominantly on that. Now, you might think otherwise, and I might be completely wrong based on my assumption, but at the same exact time, I have looked at these other groups and I have understood and I have seen that these particular groups do not necessarily have the best outcome for women in general, and definitely of women's health also. Now, the idea that we really want to focus on as well is how to prepare, because that's the one thing that we find is a detriment within our own society as well, and we want to try to mend that detriment to the best of our capabilities, is that there are certain men that are out there that prey upon women. And what we want to do, at least within the atheist uprising, is to lessen that account. We want to lessen the amount of predation that happens on a daily basis. So, what we plan on doing is we want to try to bring forward this whole new idea that I think other groups haven't necessarily thought about yet. And that is predominantly uh, defense, in a sense. So, what do I mean by defense? Well, when we focus on the general term of defense, we mean that women are able to engage against a hostile force in a particular way, that they won't necessarily, that they won't be as much of a target because that particular force is too afraid to engage, right? And what we want to try to do within the atheist uprising, if we get big enough, is to put the majority, if they obviously want, the majority of women in a type of position where they can defend themselves. So predominantly mixed martial arts, or even like boxing or something towards that extent, that women have now a better opportunity in order to defend themselves, in a better way of handling a dangerous situation, right? And this is where we really want to focus our endeavors on, is the way how we can truly build this defense of women in and of itself. The other thing that we want to try to focus on particularly is the kind of how can I say it? The group mentality, well, not group mentality, but the group mindset in and of itself. So what I mean by that is that we believe in the atheist uprising that if women stick together, like if they go to a party and everything like that, but they stick together in their groups, but they all know how to fight, for instance, now you're not necessarily dealing with one individual, you're dealing with three individuals who know how to fight and who know how to defend themselves. And this is the thing that we really believe would definitely help reduce the amount of individuals who would prey upon women in and of itself, because now you're not dealing with one or two or three individuals who know how to fight. Now you're dealing with literally a plethora inside that group. And that's what we really want to focus on. The other thing that we want to focus on too is predominantly a more secularistic safe haven or safe house for women in and of themselves that are based on or that have abusive relationships at home. So we really want to try to bring women into these secularized environments and secularized safe houses in order to benefit them and their safety from the environment that is hostile to them that they are trying to escape from. Now, don't get me wrong, I know that there are safe houses and everything like that, but predominantly those safe houses, sadly, are religious. And we don't necessarily have atheistic safe houses or secularized safe houses for women as of yet. And that's what we also want to do within the Atheist Uprising is promote that. We want to promote a more secularized safe housing for women so that they don't need to worry about whatever religious praying in the morning or whatever the situation may be, right? So that's the one thing that we really also want to focus on is that. Before I continue, I just want to see what was written inside the chat. Let's go right over here. Why can't I click on? Oh, right. 1 second. All right. So, yeah, it's unfortunate that there is so much divide between genders, which will always in organizations. Strong organization and community is also about uniting its members. You are absolutely correct, Linear. And that's why we really want to focus on this. We want to focus on we want to focus on women and men to kind of be coexisting with each other rather than focusing on one or the other. And I think that's something that would definitely benefit where the Atheist Uprising wishes to go as a community, and later on, hopefully, as something more, either a political party or whatever the situation may be. But for now, we're just focusing on more community-based and let's just say a movement-based type of thought process. But we do still want to focus on in the future, more or less, political ends to justify our means as well. Let me just see this one. It's not a bad strategy to focus a bit more on women. Sometimes more women tend to be less secular, it seems. Getting comfort from religion and spirituality. Absolutely. And I think that's something that it's definitely a what we should. How are you doing, Dion LaShay? Welcome. And again, thank you very much for coming in and supporting and listening. So thank you again. But absolutely, that is the big thing that we really want to focus on is how to really focus on the women aspect as well, because it's very true. Women are much more in line with religious thinking and spiritualistic thinking. And I think the way that we can slowly but surely change that is to show that the or atheist or secularist movements can also provide something along those lines. Not spiritualism or religiosity, but let's just say a sense of comfort, the value of comfort. And I think that we can definitely do that, but we need to start focusing on the problems that women face in order to provide that comfort, right? And in order for them, or for certain women, at least in the beginning, to really start looking at more secularized ways in looking for comfort in that sense. So I think that is something that is of great benefit, and I completely agree with you, Linear. So that's the thing. When we really want to focus on a particular subject, and definitely when it's something as touchy as this particular subject, we want to hear from women because we don't necessarily just see women as mothers, sisters, people who we have relationships with, and so on and so forth. But we also see them as fellow compatriots within this uprising in and of itself. And we can't look at the opposite sex, for instance, or the opposite sex, for instance, and try to drown them out. We must literally hear what they have to say, provide that safe space, and at the same exact time, literally provide that sense of defense, right? I think we can definitely provide that, but we need to build on that first. We need to have that foundation, that fundamental foundation that can actually help them supersede the issues that they may have and everything. And that's what this whole entire conversation is literally about, or monologue, I guess, is entirely about, is how do we fix these particular problems in general? And I think that the Atheist Uprising has the solution. The other thing that the Atheist Uprising particularly looks at, which I think a lot of secularized individuals kind of miss in a sense, is that we look, and obviously we believe that women should be in industry. That's the huge aspect of the women's suffrage movement. Well, suffrage was based on voting, but afterwards, the right to work, right? After World War II, the fight for the right to work. So we obviously agree with that. But at the same exact time, when we look at the opposite angle and women who want to particularly stay home and be mothers, for instance, I think a lot of us secular individuals have this negative mindset because it kind of brings us back to a sense of religiosity and women being forced into being housewives, whatever the situation is. But there are a particular few women at the moment that actually enjoy and want to be stay at home and stuff like that. And we in the Atheist Uprising do see this as a job in and of itself, because the mother now is preparing that next generation through staying at home to be members of the society. And henceforth, we wish to advocate as well, not obviously for the forced stay at home women, that we don't agree with, but women who choose to stay at home in order to be mothers and everything like that, in order to nurture their children through education and so on and so forth. I would say that we would particularly be in favor of wishing to, or wanting to help them. And I would think that that should actually also be a paid position in and of itself, because now the mother is helping out with the raising of the children on a daily consistent basis through 24/7, rather than working and then coming back and taking care and then going back and working and then coming back from work, right? This is her job. Her job is to provide. And henceforth, we must be there in order to accommodate this practice, so that the mothers don't feel that they are not having any income whatsoever, and they kind of just need to sit there or take from welfare or whatever the situation may be. No, we need to provide as a community for these women as well. And if these women, it's their first time having children and need help and everything like that, well, we within the Atheist Uprising believe that there should be quote unquote commissars of birth, let's just say. We'll come up with a better word, but that would go and help that mother out, that first time mother, so that she doesn't need to do this alone, right? But at the same exact time, that she can have somebody that she can lean on as well while she's taking care of her children. So this is a big aspect that I think the Atheist Uprising is looking at, that maybe not a lot of secularists agree with. If you do agree with it, awesome. If you don't, we can have a conversation about that afterwards within the question and answer session. So again, thank you very much for listening to that. What is this? Well, the women in its community. I mean, oh, okay. So that's what I completely. Oh, 1 second. Which is too bad because it's hard to. When women don't want to be moms. Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. And we need to give some sort of advantage for these women in order to want to be mothers in and of themselves. And at the same exact time, which is a benefit, is that it can actually, in due time, increase the number of secularists or atheists or whatever the hell it is in the future, which is beneficial for obviously progress, because we've so long seen that religious activities and so on and so forth have literally held us back. And in order for us to truly start having an impact on the politics and an impact on society in and of itself, we need to have more atheists and secularists within our society. And this will also promote that as well. So I completely agree with you, Linear, on that prospect. Not prospect, but on your statement. So Now, the next thing, what is the next thing that we truly look for within the community in and of itself? Because sadly, I think when individuals hear that, and let's just say the atheist uprising starts to take off, right? There are so many times when a group starts to take off that then it starts to become persecuted by the individuals around it, even if it doesn't do anything to cause problems within the community itself. Those other individuals, the larger amount of, let's just say, religious individuals within the community, will look at us and target us for whatever particular reason they would believe it necessary to do so. And again, the other thing that we believe is that if that is the case, we need to prepare our fellow members for that time, in a sense, in order to defend ourselves. Obviously, we do not want to be the ones to initiate a conflict, but at the same exact time, if a conflict does come towards us, this turn the other cheek aspect of Christianity and so on and so forth is not what we in the Atheist Uprising wish to promote. We wish to promote the defense of our peoples and the defense of the people within the movement to the best of our capabilities. So that means if anybody engages with you in hostile activity, you have the utmost right in order to defend yourself. And that's the one thing that we truly wish to focus on as well. And I think that in order to do that, that's the other reason why we wish to build forward, let's just say, a more defensive tactic against these particular individuals, right? What we wish to do is to train our fellow men and women in order to prepare for that said conflict, if that conflict does or come to pass, so that when the community is engaged, it's not just men within the community that are engaging against this threat, but it's also the women within the community as well engaging against this threat also. And I think this is the necessary way of at least helping the uprising survive in and of itself, is to allow both members within the society or both sexes within the society defend itself against those who wish to impose or persecute against our movement. So that's the one thing. And I know a lot of times too that this is very controversial in and of itself. And I can understand that certain people would be nervous of said rhetoric. But at the same exact time, you can understand, you can see that I'm not saying that we initiate anything. I'm saying that if other individuals wish to initiate harms against us, we have the absolute right of protecting ourselves. And that's predominantly what we wish to focus on, is the protection of our fellow members, female and male. However, we also wish to protect our female compatriots. And hence, that is why we wish to also build that same defense. So that's where the atheist uprising is slowly but surely looking towards the future. We don't obviously wish for there to be a conflict, but we do see that constantly within any type of movement that slowly but surely rises into fruition, there's always a group of individuals that will try to stomp it down and try to harm those individuals in order for them to be scared or persecuted from actually being part of that group. But we want to make sure that our members know that this is the way that we wish to see things. We don't want you to feel that you yourselves need to be harmed without the ratification of defending yourself. One second. By the way, oh no, it's perfectly fine. I think all topics, like religious people tend to have more children, and if secular people have less and less children, will just get buried. I think that that is a huge. You're absolutely right. is that when we look at secular individuals and atheistic individuals, because we take things much more, um, how could I say it? We look at things in a way that is based on our monetary income, right? So, can we afford to have more kids than the amount of kids that we have? Right? And if that is not the case, then we have a tendency of just having two or whatever the situation is. And that in and of itself is obviously a problem because if, just like how Linear stated, religious individuals are having more children, in due time, in 2050, just like how you can look at any statistic in 2050, you'll see that religious individuals will have much more sway over society, even though they have much more sway now, but they will continue to have much more sway in society in 2050 because they're having more kids and everything like that than we are having. And that in and of itself is a huge problem. And that's why we wish to advocate again for individuals who are secularists but want to stay at home and be mothers to be mothers in and of itself and to provide for them so that the job that they're doing is beneficial for the future of progress. And that's where we wish to go towards. We wish to always lead towards progress. We cannot have a time where we regress because then what is the point of even having a movement if the movement regresses itself through either low birth rates or whatever the situation may be? And henceforth, we must provide for mothers that wish to stay home who are secularized and everything like that in order to, in the future, win out on that strategy. So that's another reason why we really want to focus on that. So again, thank you, Linear, for literally jumping onto that because I completely agree with what you stated there. So all in all, what we really look for, what we really look to, is that we try to see the demographics of the future. Right? It's very hard to do that because demographics are so they're ambiguous in and of themselves. You can't necessarily predict 30 years into the future and say, this is what's going to happen. But at least where we can see trends, and through those trends, we can then focus on how can we build towards this new towards this new society. And through building towards this new society, what we can do is provide for today's generation so that tomorrow's generation can benefit. And the only way that we can do that is going right back to the topic, literally having mothers who are secularized and stuff like that and wishing to stay at home in order to take care of their children and to be provided for while they do that, because that is a job in and of itself within my books. So that's the way that I look at it. The other thing that I really do believe when it comes to definitely the idea of the defense aspect as well is that when we look at so many communities, what is the very thing that the communities have that we don't? And that is community centers in and of themselves. And we need to have individuals within the community centers for obviously male issues, but just like we discussed in the beginning, female issues as well. And within these community centers, we really and truly wish to create that. We wish to create individuals who are able to hear what women have to say based on the movement in and of itself so that the movement could grow in a better way, and also based in their own issues in order to literally help them circumvent or even surpass these particular issues and everything like that, and understand that there are people there listening to those particular issues so that they can be helped and everything. So in and of itself, what we truly do believe at the end of the day is that women are a huge part of the atheist uprising. And we need to start having particular individuals, and I would actually enjoy to have in due time another woman coming onto the show and literally either co-hosting with me or having their own show on the Atheist Uprising in order to hear women's issues and everything like that, while I would take the opposite side and hear about, like men's issues, talk about this, the Atheist Uprising in and of itself, and so on and so forth. But we would collaborate with each other in order to truly make the Atheist Uprising a more unanimous and united front when it comes to uh, women and men being on equal terms within the Atheist Uprising. The other thing that we would predominantly wish to focus on as well is and I know this part would probably be controversial, but we truly do believe in both women and men being, or women's and men's fitness in and of itself. So what we want to promote within the community centers, but even at home, if they're unable to make it or they're not necessarily, how could I say it, if they get nervous in large groups of people, is that we wish to promote a sense of health. So what we will do is predominantly focus on, let's just say, hiking. You predominantly focus on group activities that are meant for health or being healthier. And from that very instance, that means that women and men would be more healthier within the future generations to come. And that's what we wish to truly promote as well, is a healthier tomorrow for individuals within the Atheist Uprising. And the only way for us to do that is to create these community centers so that individuals can feel more at ease. And if necessary, have individuals working out with predominantly female um, partners, let's just say. So let's just say it either cut in half where males work out with males, females work out with females, or we can have some sort of united front, which I think is much better. And from there, really tackle the health problem as it is. Because we do see within North America at the moment that there is definitely a health scare going on. And we in the Atheist Uprising want to try to dwindle that to the best of our capabilities. And if we are able to do so, then we have done our job for our fellow constituents as well. 1 second. I can't tell you most women. I can tell you most women will prefer women-only rooms to work out. All right. Well, do you know what? We will do something which will be revolutionary in and of itself. We will create definitely a room for women to work out on their own, if that is the case, and for men to work out on their own at the same time. But at the same time, we will also have a room for individuals who want to work out together, women and men, in and of themselves, so that we can hit all areas. Because in the end, the movement needs to be, or people who are within the movement need to be okay with themselves and being with each other in and of themselves. So we got to slowly get rid of that sense of like this group by itself and this group by itself, because that's how you create a divide within a movement and create some sort of united front. But I do understand with definitely women that have come through abuses and everything like that, we wish to also create that separation as well, so that while we are building up towards that united front in fighting health and so on and so forth, I think that we would it would be better for us to build on that until we get to that point, right? Until we get to a more united sort of workout area in and of itself. But that's the way that I see the future of the Atheist Uprising, and definitely women's future within the Atheist Uprising in and of itself. And I think that we need to definitely focus on those particular problems. We need to focus on, as I stated, health in and of itself. We need to focus also on Hold on, what is this? Bye, chat. All right, see you later, YouTuber, ultimated Judeo Christian. So that is the idea that I wish to grow within the Atheist Uprising, so that we ourselves can create a safer environment for women, and slowly but surely for those women that have had issues or whatever, to help them get over those hurdles the best way that they possibly can, and with us the best way that we can possibly provide. And from there, have the transformation process begin. And through that transformation progress, what we do see, because for me, the way that I look at it is that I look back towards the time of the Scythians. I look back towards the time of the Celts and of the Spartans, for instance, and their women in and of themselves. And what I see is something that is revolutionary in today's day, but it happened in the ancient past. And I think we can build that up in women today. It will take a long time. It will take a hell of a process to get through. But I do know that in due time, the transformation will be complete, and women of today will have the same exact courage as women back there, back then in the ancient time periods of the Scythians, of the Celts, and of the Spartans. And from that very time period, what we will see is something brand new occur within our society that I think has been forgotten for so long. And that is the independent, but at the same exact time, interdependency of both women and men. Because obviously, in the end of the day, women and men do need each other, but we need to create that aspect of independence within the two, but an interdependence within the two as well. And the only way to do that is through these particular transformations in and of themselves. And the last thing that what I want to talk about before the show ends is the pay of women in and of itself. Because I do believe that when we really focus on why do certain women have the issues that they have domestically, it's because they do not have the funds in order to provide for themselves. So they're dependent on the man at home, and from there, that leads to abuse. However, if a woman is able to make money and enough money, now that dependence is no longer there. And she has reign to stay with the individual or not. Because in the end of the day, with much more leeway with the amount of money that you make, you don't need to stay within a situation that you're in at that time, right? And if that is the case, I would think a lot more women will have that freedom to choose their particular partners rather than to feel trapped because of that dependency. And that's why I think that in the end of the day, there needs to be dependency on both aspects, on women and on men. And henceforth, what really comes out of it is no longer I am forced to be in this relationship, but it's more that I want to be in this relationship because I do love this person, or I do want to make this work with this particular individual. And that's where you get freedom from. But the only way in order to do that is to get rid of that said dependency or monetary dependency on the man. And sometimes it's vice versa as well, where the man is dependent on the woman, and that can also be abusive also. So the dependency of both will equate to less harms being done to both, and let alone women as well, because that's predominantly the ones who are forced within these relationships or feel forced within these relationships because they don't have that other option, because they don't have the monetary funds in order to leave that said relationship. But if they did, as I stated, true freedom for those women would be adhered to. And then from that very moment forward, what ends up happening is that they get to decide who they wish to be with and who they wish not to be with. And that is what we in the Atheist Uprising want to actually promote, a sense of dependency, no, independent, but at the same exact time, interdependency, meaning that monetarily you are dependent or independent. My God, I'm messing up my words. My apologies. Monetarily, you are independent, but through your relationship with each other, you are interdependent with each other. And henceforth, now that relationship gives forth something brand new because it's no longer that you are dependent monetarily on your significant other. Now it's literally the love that you two have is the very thing that keeps a relationship going. And that is much stronger than any type of dependency or monetary dependency a woman needs to have. And as I stated, that is what we focus or what we want to focus on the Atheist Uprising. So, all in all, this is the end of the show. So, I want to thank all of you for coming on through and listening to what I have to say and also commenting in the comment sections. It really does help us out with the comments. And also, too, it really does provide at least your statements help or help me see how you view this because that really does help us in order to slowly but surely meld the Atheist Uprising in order to fit the narrative and everything like that. But still, at the end of the day, I just want to say thank you all so much for coming on through. I want to thank our Patreon supporters again. I want to thank Linear. I want to thank TART. And I want to thank Dion LaShay for coming on through and being uh, Patreon supporters and also just listening in. I really do appreciate it. I'll leave a little bit of time just for any comments. If anybody has any comments, any questions, anything, or maybe I forgot something. So please, if there's anything that I forgot, shoot it in the comments sections. I'll look at it, I'll read it, and if I did forget about it, I will actually talk about it a bit with the time that is given. If not, then well, as I said, we'll end the show. But I'll just let the time go on just for a bit longer, just to make sure that there's somebody who doesn't necessarily get left out in the comment sections if they have any questions. Um, so yeah, so that's the big thing that we really want to focus on, and we really want to focus on these aspects in order to make the atheist uprising stronger. Because I think that with a more with I know this is going to sound weird, but with a more transformed, let's just say, woman and man, for instance, the the movement will be stronger, and the movement will be more united than ever because we're listening to these particular problems, and because we are having more open ears to particular issues which women may have and everything like that, and maybe even subjects, as I stated, that I forgot to even mention within this show. So yeah, I think this was definitely a show that needed to be had. I think it shows our position within at least women in the atheist uprising and how we see women within the atheist uprising of itself, so that anybody who wishes to listen to this particular uh, subject matter and see like where does the atheist uprising stand on women's issues, bang, this is the video for you. So all in all, I think that yeah, I guess that there's not a lot or nobody has questions. So in and of itself, I want to thank you all again. Thank you for stopping by. I want to thank Linear. I want to thank Tart and Dion LaShay again for supporting us on Patreon. And I will see you next weekend on the Atheist Uprising. Until then, Have a wonderful night, everybody.